Okay, this is absorption costing question 8 from the 2009 paper. So we start by laying these costs out, and these here we need to share out among the 3 different departments. I've taken the figures already for processing, assembly and finishing that we have for indirect materials and labour. I've put them into my solution. I now need to share out the costs, so the 28 grand, the 80 grand, 70 grand, 64 grand and 50 grand that I have for those other areas. So machine maintenance, well, based on the information I have here, I've got machine hours, so I might use that for my maintenance. So 40 out of 80, so that's half of the 28 grand is going to go to processing. That's because 40 of the 80. Now then 3/8, okay, is going to go to the next department. And then the last department, it has 10 over 80, or 1/8. So 28 grand divided by 8. Plant, so paint depreciation, this should be plant depreciation. So plant depreciation should be based on something to do with plant, so there is plant of book value. So plant value, 80 grand is plant value, so 3/5 of that So 3/5 goes to processing. No, that's wrong. And then we have 150 over 500. 150 over 50 goes there, and then the last one then is 50, so it's 10%. So that's going to be 8 grand. 10% of 80 grand is okay. So that's 1/10. Light and heat. Well, I'll do that. Let's say based on the volume. That's the amount of overall space in the building. So processing department has how much space? It has 24 out of 42, so it's 24 over 42. Where are we now? So the volume for assembly. So assembly is 12 out of 42. So 12 over 42. And then the finishing is going to be 6 over 42. So rent and rates is 64 grand, so I'll do that based on floor space. You could do that based on volume as well. So 64 grand times now. So floor space, well, half of it. So 8 over 16. And then 5 over 16. So it'll be 64 grand times 5 over 16. And 64 grand times 3 over 16. So that's how I've shared out my overheads there. And now factory canteen. I'll do that based on employees. So there's 60 employees, or 60% of all of the employees are in the processing department. So it'll be that times 60%. Then we have 30% and 10%. So it'll be 50 times 30% and 50 times 10%. So you get your total overheads. So I want to share them out. I need to come up with the basis for apportionment first. So what's the main activity in each department? So it's either going to be machine hours or labour hours. So half of all the machine hours is in the processing department. In terms of labour, it's more than half. So I'm going to make that based on the labour hours. The next one, 3/8 of all of the machine hours in assembly. where less than that is less than labour errors. So I'm going to say assembly is based on machine errors. And then the last one, 10/8, so 1/8 is machine errors in the finishing department. 25 over 140 is more than that, so I'm going to say that's based on labour errors. Now, you're just using common sense here. I've just decided here that off the top of my head, 25 over 140 is more than 10 over 80. Yeah, so that's a larger fraction, so that's why I've decided that labour errors is the way I'm going to share it out. I put my overhead in, and then I'm going to divide it by, in this case it's labour, so I'm going to divide it by the total number of labour errors in that department. So the labour errors is 80. In the processing department, the overhead is 309 there, and it's based on machine errors. So the machine errors in the assembly department is 30,000. And the finishing department, we've decided to do it based on labour errors. So again, I'll have my overheads divided by the total number of hours. So it's labour errors, we decided, so 25,000. So, and that's going to be per labour hour. So the next is machine errors divided by its total hours, and that's per machine errors. And then the last one is and that's per labour hour. So working out the price of this job. So this job is job number 510. So the materials is easy enough. It's given to us. We've got 10,000 in the processing department, 2,400 in the next one, and then we've got 0 in this one. Okay, and then direct labour, 2,000, 4, 6, and 800. Okay, so this is where we start to come to the tricky bit, the overheads. We have our overhead absorption rates above. So when I'm charging anyone for a job that comes in, I need to know how many labour hours I'm going to have in the processing department, and whatever number of hours multiplied by the rate will give the share of the overheads that has to go to this particular job for that particular department. So here I know that 7.925 has to be multiplied by the number of labour hours involved in this job. So I go over and I see, well, this job in the processing department is 50 hours times 50, so I'll multiply it out. So it's the absorption rate, multiplied by the number of labour hours in this job, which is 50. Assembly. So assembly, we got 10.31, or rounding off to 3.2, let's say, multiplied by the number of machine hours. There's 30 machine hours. So it's the absorption rate times 30. And then the finishing department, well, it's 834 times how many, and this one here is based on labour hours. So how many labour hours will be involved in this job? There's going to be 12 involved in this job. So it's go to the rate, 834, and then multiply by 12. So I'll add these together. And that'll give me a total cost. So I'll be adding my materials, my labor, and my overheads together. So that's the overall cost of me doing this job. So now I have to add my profit. It says we budget for a profit margin of 25%. Okay, so the profit is 25%. Because it's a margin, margin is the profit is compared to sales price. So sales is 100%, which means the cost must be 75%. So if I can take this number here and divide by 75, I get 1%, then multiply by 25 and it'll give me my profit. So I divide this by 75 to get the 1%, and then I'll multiply it by 25 and that'll give me my profit, and my selling price is by adding those two on together. Okay, no, that didn't, yeah, I think I just need to widen the column so you can see the number. Okay, no, that's a mistake. No, I multiplied them, I should be adding. There we go. Okay, I hope that makes sense.